The wind carried the dust like old secrets that never settled, curling through the crooked boards of Main Street as the sun dragged itself low over the horizon. Dusk painted the town in shades of amber and sorrow, and in that dying light she walked, a young mother, her child pressed close against her chest. Clara Whitfield. The townsfolk whispered her name like a curse or a warning, though she had done nothing but survive. And yet in the Old West, survival was sometimes the very thing that set you apart, made you a target for pity or scorn. Her son Eli clung to her shoulder, his golden hair catching the last flicker of day, his eyes wide and watchful, as though even at 5 years old, he knew what it was to be seen and judged. There are women, the old ones said, who will never wear a white dress again. At church gatherings, Clara felt those words prick her skin. In the marketplace, when she bartered for bread, she felt the glances as sharp as knives. They called her ruined, some with pity, some with cruelty, and all the while she stitched Eli's shirts with tenderness, baked bread when flour was thin, and even shared her crust with a beggar who thanked her through cracked lips. Quiet acts of grace, done without witness, save for God and the boy who never let go of her hand. The day the stranger rode into town, the air shifted. He was a man carved from silence, carrying it heavier than his saddle. Wyatt Callahan. His hat shadowed his eyes, and scar crossed his hand like a memory he never spoke of. He dismounted by the saloon, and drew no attention but hers, though she quickly looked away. Later that evening, when Eli stumbled in the dust, Wyatt was suddenly there, steadying him before he fell. Clara gathered her son quickly, muttering thanks, her voice catching, unsure if gratitude would make her seem needy. Wyatt simply tipped his hat, his gaze lingering just long enough to leave a mark. Days turned into weeks, and small gestures came like drops of water on parched earth. Wyatt would hold the reins of his horse when Clara passed by, quieting the beast so her boy would not be startled. He left a small sack of apples on her porch, no note, but Eli's laughter when he bit into one was louder than any declaration. Clara told herself not to trust kindness. It was a dangerous thing in a town where kindness could turn into cruelty if seen too often. Still, her heart tightened when she watched Eli tug at Wyatt's sleeve, asking about horses and trails. Wyatt's replies were few but gentle. The town noticed. Whispers spread like wildfire on dry grass. He could have his pick, the women muttered, yet wasted on a woman with baggage. Men smirked and said worse. Clara felt their judgment as if she carried it in her very bones. To shield Wyatt from their malice, she began to keep her distance, pulling Eli away with polite excuses, avoiding the places she once walked. At night, she told herself it was better this way, that she had no right to let another man's life be spoiled by her shadow. But Wyatt was stubborn in the quietest of ways. One morning, Clara found her broken gate mended, the wood smoothed by a hand that knew patience. No one admitted to it, but she saw the scar on his hand later that day, raw from work. She said nothing. He said nothing. Yet the air between them spoke volumes, words that the world would never permit. Dusk again. Clara stood in the doorway of her small house, Eli's arms looped around her neck, his breathing heavy with sleep. She looked out at the horizon and whispered to the night that she was not meant for love, that whatever flame once lived in her heart had been snuffed out by loss and by shame. The words tasted like ash. She thought she spoke them only to herself. But then, in the drowsy voice of a child not quite gone to dreams, Eli murmured against her shoulder, "Mama, he looks at you like you're not alone." The words pierced deeper than any gossip, sweeter than any hymn. Clara's chest ached, caught between the weight of despair and the fragile spark of hope she dared not name. And in that moment, with the stars beginning their slow shimmer over the wild land, she realized that perhaps her story was not yet finished. The Saturday gathering came with fiddles and laughter, though beneath the music the town's heartbeat was sharp with judgment. Lanterns swung above Main Street, casting golden pools on the dust where boots scuffed and skirts swept. Clara held Eli's hand tightly as they walked among the crowd, her heart caught between wanting her boy to taste joy and fearing the eyes that followed them. She wore her best dress, faded at the hem but pressed neat, and Eli clutched a toy horse carved from wood. Across the square, Wyatt Callahan leaned against a post, hat low, watching her not as others did, with pity or gossip, but as though she were a horizon worth crossing. The whispers rose as the night deepened. A pair of women passed close, voices sharp as thorns. "She'll never wear white again. No man wants a woman already claimed." Eli's head turned, his little face tightening as the words landed. He tugged at his mother's sleeve and said too loud, "My mama's good. She's better than all of them." Clara pressed him against her side, shushing him, trembling as shame curled inside her chest like fire. Her eyes stayed down, but she felt Wyatt's gaze from across the square, steady and unyielding. He turned away at first, fists clenched in silence, walking into the shadows beyond the lamplight. Memories dragged him back, of battlefields, of nights where loneliness was the only voice that answered. He had lost much, had wandered long, and he knew the cruelty of whispers. His breath came hard, as though he might leave, as though this moment was too sharp to bear. But then he stopped. He turned, and he walked back into the light. The crowd stirred when Wyatt crossed the street with measured steps, dust rising beneath his boots like smoke. He removed his hat as he reached Clara, standing before her in the full gaze of the town. Silence fell, the fiddles faltered, and even the lanterns seemed to flicker with the weight of the moment. He did not speak at once. He only looked at her, his scarred hand trembling slightly as he reached out. Then, slowly, he dropped to one knee, not with polished words, not with practiced charm, but with raw, unvarnished truth. Gasps rustled through the crowd like wind through prairie grass. Wyatt lifted his gaze, voice low but steady, carrying across the hush, "Clara Whitfield, I have no riches, no fine name, but I know what it is to be alone, and I would walk beside you if you'd let me." He said nothing more. No grand promise, no flourish, only the offering of himself, plain and whole. Clara's breath hitched, her world spinning between disbelief and the crushing weight of every whisper ever cast upon her. Her hands trembled, clutching Eli close. The boy's small voice broke the silence. "Say yes, Mama." His words rang truer than any sermon, pure as the desert sky. Tears welled in Clara's eyes, spilling freely as the strength she had buried for years rose up. With a trembling hand, she reached out and laid her fingers in Wyatt's palm. The crowd murmured, some in shock, some in disdain, but their voices seemed far away now. All that mattered was the feel of his hand closing over hers, steady as a promise. Wyatt rose, lifting Eli onto his shoulders with ease, the boys' laughter breaking the heaviness like birds taking flight. Together they stood in the center of the street, the three of them bound not by words but by choice, by courage, by love that defied the chains of shame. The townsfolk stared, some scoffing, others softening, but Clara no longer bowed beneath their judgment. She stood taller than she ever had, her heart blazing with a light no whisper could dim. As they walked forward, sunlight broke through the thinning clouds above, casting gold across the dust. It felt as if the world itself bore witness, as though heaven had opened its hands to bless what the town had cursed. Clara looked ahead, the boys' laughter ringing in her ears, Wyatt's steady presence beside her, and for the first time in years she felt the weight lift from her chest. She was not ruined. She was chosen. And so, dear listener, if you carry the burden of being unwanted, if you feel marked by loss or by the sharp tongues of others, remember Clara Whitfield and the cowboy who knelt in the dust. Love will not always come as thunder or fire. Sometimes it arrives as a quiet man with a scarred hand, or as a child's voice whispering hope in the dark. The world may call you ruined, but love, true love, will call you whole.